Faculty of Environmental Design and Management, University of Ibadan. I welcome every one of you to this occasion, that is Faculty Guest Lecture organized by the Faculty of Environmental Design and Management. As we maintain our sitting position, we rise to take the national team. And after that, we take the University of Ibadan. Thank you. Let's have a seat. I want to specially recognize the following people in our midst this morning, so that I start with our guest lecturer, the person of Professor Serene Ayodele Ajayi, who is an emeritus professor. Is a round of applause as our culture. When bring to the item, please have the seat on the item. Keep clapping as it comes to the item. Your stress, please assist. You are welcome. So in that order, we have other dignitaries in our midst. That's Emeritus Professor Olajide Kufode. Please stand for recognition as you come to the items. Keep clapping. You are welcome. So in that order, we have in our midst the representative and then the key man when it comes to matters of federal Nigeria Institute of Estate Survey and File. So no other person than Elder Sabi Adesanya, the national chairman for the federal Nigeria Institute of Estate Survey. Please rise as you come to the item. So in that order, because I don't want to lose my job, there is a man who is the chief of this location. No other person than Professor Malawi, the Dean of the Faculty of Environmental Design and Management. You know that one for your day. You don't know that place? I want your profession. You need to know that's our thing. Thank you. Thank you. Also, we have living ancestors. When it comes to planning and anything relating to the built environment. And today we are lucky to have it in our midst, one of our living ancestors, to have one of them in our midst. No other person than Emeritus Professor Lai Ego. Please don't rely on yourself. You are welcome. In Blackwood is one of our living ancestors when it comes to the built environment. Okay, thank you. So I want to bring to the high table Dr. T.O. Odeyale Sadiq for the graduate. That of the University of Ibadan, the welcome. That's all. I need me to bring to the high table. That's Sadiq, undergraduates, University of Ibadan, no other person than Dr. Adebola Adeyemo. Dr. Adebola Adeyemo. People are being or it is reformed for the idea. Thank you. So also, I recognize the following people seated in our midst. Professor J.B. Oyedele, Estate Management, the founder of Estate Management of Harvard University. Please recognize it. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's like we have more of OAU representative here. Because that happening for Professor Yedeli looks so amazing. I think we need to tell you what is behind that. Thank you for that. I love it. Then I would also like to recognize Estate Valuer Adisa, fellow Nigerian Institute of Estate Social Value. Former to Polytechnic Level. You are welcome. We have in our midst members of the faculty of environmental design and management that time will not permit me to bring them upon one after the other. But all faculty members, can you please rise for recognition? Thank you. Thank you. I also love to recognize the presence of the faculty officer, the person of Mr. Tayo Abishi. Please rise for the recognition. Okay, thank you. All HODs in the faculty of environmental design and management, I recognize you. Can you please stand for the recognition? Introduce the partners of our pleasure. Introduce the partners of our history. Introduce the partners of our nationality. Introduce the partners of the estate planning. Thank you so much. We continue the recognition as other dignitaries come join this occasion. But not the last, not the least, all students of the faculty of environmental design and management that are here present, rise and clap for yourself. All our students, Thank you. Thank you. Yes, there's a reason for that. And I know somebody here in our meeting will have seen the crowd, and then in his mind will be saying that this is what he started at the center with one or two lessons, and then not up to 10 students have graduated to this number. Professor Lai Egojobi, I believe you are happy today. Thank you, sir. That's our given us. Thank you, sir. So we move now to the next program, the next item that we have on the program. That is the welcome address by the Dean, Faculty of Environmental Design and Management, University of Ibadan, Professor A.L. Alabi.
drastically changed and expanded. So this is a nice government. Taking out the look at the government, the best way to fast all our population here. Now they all, and those people in the next thing here, two heads, is not of all. Now they design, architecture is not of all. Now they are talking mass of planning, and a lot of idea plan is also not of all. And property value, that's the main thing, that's the issue. This is not professionally in real estate. So like that's the first thing is actually to teaching in this policy. So let me thank members of the healthcare section of the city for making this program a reality. I'm confident that the lecture will be of student benefit to all stakeholders in the business environment. The panel will welcome everyone to this great event. That's and God bless.
A round of applause for our king, the social and science speech. Thank you so much. Before we move to the next item on the program, I would like to recognize the members of the Faculty of Built Environmental Studies, the Global University and the Osun State. Can you please rise for recognition? Faculty members, thank you. A round of applause. You are welcome. That is the faculty that is hosting our guest lecturer today. That's Professor Siri Ayobele Ajayi. Thank you so much. So we move now to the next item, and that is opening remarks by the planning committee chairperson. That is Dr. Olape Adeleke.
I'm so happy to welcome each and every one of you to this program. We held a David edition last year, precisely on the 20th of May. And so this is the second edition. So I warmly welcome each and every one of you to this program. And I really know that at the end of this program, you will be happy that you came. Thank you very much. The bulk of my speech is in this monograph, page 5. So I'll just read it as a form of welcome address to you. Thank you. All protocols duly observed. On behalf of the Faculty Conference Committee for this great event, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to this second edition of our distinguished guest faculty lecture. It may interest you to know that the maiden edition was held on the 20th of May 2025. I would also like to extend my thanks to our guest of honor, the lecturer per excellence, and my father in the real estate profession, the top professor of estate management in Nigeria, Emeritus Professor Siri Ayobele Ajayi. We feel incredibly fortunate to have you with us, sir. The success of the second edition of the Faculty of Environmental Design and Management, University of Ibadan guest lecture, and the subsequent publication of this monograph reflect the collective effort of many individuals and groups. We are especially grateful to the acting heads of the Departments of Estate Management and Quantity Surveying, University of Ibadan, Dr. Abiodun Dumola, and Dr. Feliciaton Leo Olagbaye, and to the staff of both departments who conceived the lecture and were about to launch it as a joint program. While this initiative was underway, our amiable and visionary dean, Professor Moro Alabi, proposed elevating the lecture from a two-department initiative to a faculty-hosted program. A recommendation that faculty members readily and enthusiastically endorsed. To all faculty members, we say thank you for making this to happen. We therefore express our sincere appreciation to all teaching and non-teaching staff of the faculty for their support and unwavering commitment to the success of this event. We also acknowledge our undergraduate and postgraduate students for generously devoting their time to attend this lecture. To this we say thank you as well. We extend our heartfelt gratitude to the many friends of the faculty whose generous support made this lecture possible. In particular, we wish to recognize Professor Shegun Okuba, Professor Bola Babadola, ESD Remi Oneko, ESD Barrister Ayo Oladapo, ESD Barrister Wasi Olayinka, ESD Samson Abato, and Dr. Samson Adeleke. We are especially indebted to our pioneer head, Professor Latoye Ojo, who first proposed this lecture, and to ESD Sir B. Adesoya, who has consistently championed our cause. You can see that what I'm saying is perfectly true. Tabi is also here with us today. Please, can we give him a round of applause? He's always championing our cause. And please, can you give me Ayo Oladapo a round of applause? I thank you. You got to thank you. Let me say this program will not be easy. Thank you very much, sir. We acknowledge our indefatigable Vice Chancellor, Professor Kebo Adekowale, FAS, MNI, and other principal officers of the first and best university, the University of Ibadan. We further express our sincere appreciation to the team and staff of the Faculty of Law, University of Ibadan, for graciously granting us the use of this lecture. Above all, we extend our profound gratitude to all participants who came eagerly to attend this event, including erudite professors and senior colleagues from the Faculty of Environmental Design and Management, serving and retired, professors from within and outside the Federal University, members of professional bodies, and other distinguished guests. Finally, we sincerely appreciate all members of the Faculty Lecture Committee for working assiduously to make this event a success. Once again, it is my pleasure to extend a shared welcome to each and every one of you. Thank you.
Another round of applause for the chairperson, the Minister for Creative Research, a very captured speech. I just listened, I said, wow, this is interesting. So, before we move to the next item, permit me to recognize ESP Fumi Abraham, fellow and United Talk, Estate Solid and Value. Thank you. You are welcome. So, we move to the next item, that is citation of the distinguished guest lecturer to be taken by Dr. Fechetu Leo Oladapo.
Permit me to lean on the already established rule of law as I read the citation of our guest lecturer for this morning. It's actually a privilege to be standing before us to read the citation of this powerful man. My father, my mentor, my role model in every sense. He guided me through my stay in Obafemi University, and now I'm reading his citation this morning. So thank you for all the guidance and all the efforts made for me to be in Obafemi University. About the presenter, Emeritus Professor Cyril Ayodele Ajayi, PhD, FNIBS, RSB, was educated at the prestigious University of Ife, now Obafemi University, where he obtained a Bachelor of Science honors in Estate Management in 1974. He subsequently proceeded to the University of Reading in the United Kingdom, one of the world's most respected centers for land and property studies, where he earned a Master of Science in Urban Land Appraisal in 1978. He later returned to complete the Doctor of Philosophy in Estate Management in 1990, thereby consolidating an academic foundation that would mature into one of the most respected scholarly and professional careers in the built environment. From his first appointment as a graduate assistant on the 1st of June 1976, he rose through the full ladder of academic distinction through merit, scholarship, service, and impact. At Obafemi Awolowo University, Professor Ajayi served with uncommon distinction as acting head of department, vice dean on several occasions, dean of the Faculty of Environmental Design and Management, chairman of the Faculty Postgraduate Committee, and a member of numerous statutory and strategic committees central to the governance, direction, and intellectual life of the university. Professor Ajayi's academic reach has been both national and international. He has served as guest lecturer, Commonwealth Visiting Fellow, Visiting Professor, Head of Department, Dean, and Foundation Dean at major institutions, including the University of Reading, Covenant University, the University of Lagos, the Federal University of Technology, Akure, Joseph Ayo Babalola University, and the Human University. In these roles, he played foundational part in designing and strengthening programs in estate management and the broader built environment disciplines. At Redeemers University, he served as Foundation Dean of the Faculty of Built Environment Studies, further demonstrating that his gift lies not merely in the narrative systems, but in shaping them from the ground up. Emeritus Professor Ajayi has successfully supervised 14 master's theses, 2 MTech theses, and 19 PhD theses. More importantly, many of those he mentored have themselves risen to the prominent positions in academia and professional life. At least 10 of his PhD students became professors, while others became senior scholars, head of departments, deans, respected practitioners, and institutional builders in their own rights, thus multiplying excellence. His scholarly contributions have helped shape the intellectual architecture of real estate education and valuation discourse in Nigeria and beyond. He is the author of major works that have influenced both teaching and practice, including theories, techniques, and practice of development, appraisal, property investment valuation, and analysis, and his seminal inaugural lecture, Property Market Dynamics in Paradigm Shifts in Investment Valuation Methodology. They are impressive publications, interventions, and intellectual landmarks. They are evidence of a scholar who did not approach his field passively, but sought to sharpen it, challenge it, and move it forward. The honors he has received only confirm what the field has long known. He is a fellow of the Nigerian Institution of Estate Valuers, Estate Surveyors and Valuers. He is a registered estate surveyor and valuer. He was a recipient of the Association of Commonwealth University Fellowship Award. He received the Emerald Network Award for Excellence. He was honored with the Best Paper Award for African Real Estate Research in the evaluation category at the 20th Annual Conference in Lusaka, Zambia. Professor Ajayi has earned the respect of his peers, the gratitude of his students, the trust of institutions, and the admiration of the profession. His influence has been equally far-reaching. He has served on major accreditation and curriculum panels across Nigeria and contributed to 3 national regulatory and professional bodies, including the NUC, NBTE, NIESB, and SBABO. Over the years, he has been repeatedly invited to serve as a keynote speaker, resource person, external examiner, moderator of professional examinations, and advisor on academic and professional standards. As chairman of the Education Committee of SBABON, he continues to help shape the future of training and quality assurance within the profession. His expertise is recognized not only in Nigeria but also beyond, as shown by his invitation from the government of Ghana to lead accreditation work in land economy and real estate programs. This is the mark of a scholar whose credibility extends across the continent. It is therefore fitting that the theme of today's lecture is, what are we really measuring? rethinking cost, design, planning, and property value in an era of data asymmetry, climate risk, and uncertainty. We do respect this one. Can you please rise to our feet as we welcome our Professor Emeritus, Professor Cyril Ajayi.
Please, let's be seated. Thank you. I stand on existing protocols. Distinguished colleagues, respected members of the faculty, the dean of the faculty, the heads of departments here present. I also like to recognize especially one of our benefactors, Sabi Adeson. I want to also recognize one of my mentors, is an ancestor, Professor Laye Kunyobi. And also my colleague from British Emeritus Professor Kudi. I consider it a singular privilege to deliver this faculty lecture at the University of Ibadan, the premier university. A lecture of this nature should not be reduced to ceremonial eloquence, nor should it be mistaken for a catalogue of fashionable trends. Its responsibility is to examine first principles, to test inherited assumptions, and to ask whether the conceptual foundations on which our professions stand are still adequate for the world we are attempting to interpret. I therefore propose to begin not with reassurance, but with an interrogation. What are we really measuring? Measurement seems to be common to the professions. Architecture, we measure. Quantity surveying, we measure. Estate management, we measure. Urban and regional planning, we measure. So what are we really measuring? The central concern of this lecture is that the built environment professions in Africa, and especially in Nigeria, still derive much of their analytical confidence from tools developed for markets that are assumed to be legible, stable, documented, and institutionally coherent. Whereas the environments within which we now operate are marked by fragmented data, climate exposure, informality, political mediation, infrastructural stress, and deep social inequality. Under such conditions, it becomes necessary to ask whether our outputs remain as sound as our rituals suggest, and whether our methods continue to illuminate reality or merely preserve professional comfort. This question, what are we really measuring, touches every discipline represented in this faculty. The valuer is concerned with evidence, price formation, risk, and judgment. The quantity surveyor is concerned with cost, viability, life cycle implications, and procurement logic. The architect is concerned with form, habitability, spatial intelligence, and material response. The planner is concerned with land use regulation, urban order, environmental balance, and the public interest. The temptation in academic and professional life has often been to treat these as adjacent but distinct territories. Contemporary urban reality resists such compartmentalization. Flood risk does not stop at the boundary of valuation. Informality does not confine itself to planning. Energy efficiency is not merely an architectural inconvenience. Forced economies do not remain safely inside the middle of quantities. The city experiences our decisions in aggregate. Markets reveal the consequences jointly. Society bears the burden collectively. That is why the title of this lecture is framed as a question rather than a declaration. It asks not only what we measure, but what we have chosen to ignore. It asks whether price, cost, design, quality, and regulatory order have been mistaken for further conceptions of value. It asks, above all, what exactly we are measuring when we meet the environment itself has become a site of converging uncertainty. The historical development of these environment professions followed a recognizable intellectual settlement. Valuation emerged with confidence in the interpretive power of market evidence. Quantity surveying matured around the discipline of cost control, financial probity, and measurable efficiency. Architecture built its authority around utility, order, beauty, and technical competence. Planning justified itself through coordinated land use, public regulation, and urban rationality. These traditions did not emerge arbitrarily. They reflected the needs of their time and the epistemologies available to them. A relatively orderly market with clearer records, lower informational turbulence, and less visible environmental disruption, it was reasonable to assume that observed prices would guide value, that initial cost discipline would stand in for efficiency, that design adequacy could be judged substantially through physical and aesthetic performance, and that planning could proceed through command, zoning, and compliance. Gentlemen, the difficulty before us is not that these traditions were misguided, but that they were developed around assumptions that have grown increasingly fragile. Valuation theory presumes that market evidence is sufficiently transparent to permit reasoned judgment. Quantity surveying assumes that optimization of costs yields meaningful economic discipline. Architecture often assumes that good design can be judged substantially through function, beauty, comfort, and technical resolution. Planning has tended to presume that regulatory instruments can mediate growth with some degree of procedural authority and spatial coherence. Each of these assumptions now encounters sustained pressure. The World Cities Report of 2024 from the UN Habitat places cities at the front line of climate exposure, emphasizing floods, heat waves, infrastructure stress, and growing urban vulnerability. The updated RICS Valuation Global Standards, effective 31st January 2025, similarly reflects the professor's recognition that sustainability and environmental risks can no longer be treated as marginal marginal to value where they are materially relevant. In other words, even international standards now concede what life reality has been teaching for some time, namely that the built environment can no longer be interpreted adequately through narrow, self-contained professional learnings. The conceptual implication is therefore significant. A profession becomes vulnerable when its technical procedures remain stable while the ontology of its object changes. The land market changes, the climate regime changes, the institutional landscape changes, the information environment changes, occupier behavior changes, urban inequality changes. When those changes accumulate, the professional who continues to act as though evidence has retained the same meaning in all circumstances may preserve procedural neatness while losing interpretive power. One of the great risks of professional maturity is that it can slide quietly into professional complacency. A method taught for generations can acquire an aura of timelessness that the world itself does not honor. The duty of an academic institution like this is to resist that complacency and to reopen a question of adequacy. Let me now turn directly to valuation, which is my own discipline, and therefore the discipline I must interrogate most honestly. The strength of valuation has always rested on disciplined judgment. Its weakness, when insufficiently self-aware, lies in the ease with which judgment can harden into convention. The comparative method remains central to practice because it offers a practical bridge between observed transactions and inferred value. Yet, the comparable is only as meaningful as the market ecology that produces it. In then opaque, politically mediated or environmentally stressed markets, comparable evidence may be technically available but conceptually compromised. That is not a minor methodological inconvenience. It is a foundational problem. Consider Lagos, particularly the eastern corridor encompassing Lekki, Ajah, and adjoining high demand locations. Lagos State's Climate Action Plan for 2020 to 2025 identifies flooding, subsidence, sea level rise, and heat as major climate risks to the state. In October 2023, Lagos State government warned residents of Lekki, Ajah, Ikoyi, Victoria Island, and other areas about likely inundation, citing rainfall figures that are risen from 969 mm in 2021 to 1,140 mm in 2022 and to 1,410.1 mm by mid-October 2023. That is not merely meteorological information. It is valuation information. It speaks directly to assess risk, insurability, maintenance body, business interruption, future capex pressure, neighborhood perception, and long-term market confidence. Yet, a great many valuation routines in such locations continue to lean heavily on historical comparables, prestige effects, and recent transactions, as though the environmental basis of occupation had not materially shifted. When the evaluation framework absorbs price evidence but inadequately prices emerging environmental exposure, What it produces may look precise, but precision under incomplete conceptual framing is a very sophisticated form of error. A profession and authority not by pretending certainty where uncertainty has deepened, but by interpreting evidence in the light of changing conditions. The pressing question for valuation in contemporary Nigeria is not whether comparables should be abandoned. That would be unserious. The more demanding question is whether comparables should continue to enjoy interpretive primacy in markets where data conditions are uneven, transaction disclosure is limited, environmental risk is rising, and non-market influences remain substantial. In Abuja, for example, a plot in Maitama, Asokoro observed may command elevated prices that reflect not only use value and locational efficiency, but also administrative access, political symbolism, and control scarcity. In such settings, market value can become a tool with state power. In Port Harcourt, commercial and residential patterns have long been shaped by the fortunes of the oil economy, so that the valuation of certain assets may say as much about extractive cycles and executive mobility as about stable local fundamentals. What deserves emphasis here is that market price is never pure. It is always socially produced. When valuers forget that, they risk treating market outcomes as neutral revelations when they are often opposites of information scarcity, vulnerability, privilege, and expectation. The larger discipline-wide challenge therefore lies in moving from procedural confidence to epistemic humility. A valuer of the present era must ask not only what evidence exists, but what evidence is missing. What risks are under-reflected? What future conditions are already beginning to rewrite present meanings? And what social or institutional forces have shaped the transaction record itself? That is a more difficult valuation culture. It demands broader reading, stronger contextual literacy, and deeper interdisciplinary conversation. Yet it is precisely that difficulty which distinguishes mature professional judgment from routine professional repetition. If valuation has often privileged observed price, quantity surveying has often privileged controlled expenditure. The discipline has contributed enormously to the integrity of project delivery, especially where budgets are weakly governed and procurement is vulnerable to inflation, variation, and inefficiency. However, the contemporary built environment raises a serious question about the adequacy of first cost rationality. A daily can be delivered cheaply and still profoundly uneconomic. It can satisfy a tender threshold and fail a lifespan test. It can appear efficient at handover and become physically punishing in operation. It can still cost in month 12 and destroy value in year 7. That decision is no longer peripheral. It is central to professional seriousness. Nigeria provides multiple examples of this tension. The revised National Housing Policy published in 2012 recognized the inadequacy of prior housing frameworks and called for more coherent delivery systems, partnership structures, and policy guidance. Even so, the national housing conversation has remained trapped too often in the arithmetic of unit counts rather than the deeper economics of habitable, durable, service-linked, and maintainable housing. The World Bank's recent analysis of Nigerian cities have continued to emphasize the scale of the housing shortage, the weakness of infrastructure, and the relevance of informal housing conditions, noting a housing deficit of around 17 million units and an urban population in which roughly 49% live in informal housing, lacking basic services. Under these conditions, the quantity surveyor's role cannot be confined to containing initial capital outlay. The discipline is now called to reckon more explicitly with life cycle costs, adaptation costs, deferred maintenance risk, service fragility, and the future expense of poor design choices made under present fiscal pressure. This becomes especially important when climate and infrastructure space are considered. A low-cost built envelope that performs poorly under heat may dramatically increase cooling demand. In cities such as Abuja, where peak temperatures routinely place pressure on mechanical systems, pure envelope design with ventilation logic and energy-intensive materials choices generate recurrent economic costs for banks and owners. A drainage-light site strategy in a flood-prone part of Lagos may reduce initial site works while inviting assistant repair expenditure and service disruption. A coastal project that underestimates resilience requirements may preserve capital in the short run while importing future liabilities into both operation and value. The quantities of your therefore sits at a crucial moral and technical junction. The profession can either remain the custodian of narrow expenditure efficiency or become the custodian of economically intelligent stewardship. In the era before us, stewardship is the higher calling. It asks not what a project can be delivered for, but what it will continue to cost when climate, maintenance, energy, material failure, and adaptation are honestly counted. Once that question is asked, we go, many projects that appear affordable begin to look deeply expensive. Architecture must also be recalled to a larger seriousness. In many professional and public conversations, architecture is celebrated either through visual prestige or through the functional language of program fulfillment. Those dimensions remain important, but they are no longer sufficient for a world in which climate, urban congestion, unreliable services, and affordability pressures increasingly shape the meaning of habitability. A building that photographs well and fails thermally is not an architectural success. A development that exhibits technical sophistication but cannot adapt to local climate, utility inconsistency, or social realities is not an advanced building. It is often an expensive misunderstanding. The case of Abuja is particularly illuminating. Across parts of the federal capital territory, one finds an expanding inventory of glazed commercial and institutional buildings whose aesthetic vocabulary borrows from globally circulating notions of modernity. Yet the environmental intelligence of some of these forms remains questionable in a city where high dry season temperatures, intense solar gain, and heavy dependence on cooling systems combine to raise operating costs and reduce resilience. Architecture in such circumstances becomes inseparable from quantity surveying from valuation and planning. Thermal inefficiency affects operational costs. It affects occupancy behavior, asset desirability, and long-term market performance. The architect therefore cannot retreat into form alone. The discipline must recover an older but now renewed obligation to climatic intelligence, material appropriateness, passive design strategy, flexibility of use, and social suitability. Port Harcourt offers a different but equally important challenge. The city's waterfront communities have long revealed the contradiction between formal urban ambition and socially embedded housing reality. In January 2022, a River State task force marked homes in several waterfront communities for demolition. And by the 3rd of February 2022, the demolitions had spread across 10 communities that Amnesty International estimated housed about 60,000 people. One need not romanticize informality to recognize the professional question embedded in that episode. If architecture speaks only to formal commissions and premium markets, while vast populations inhabit ecologies of precarity, displacement, and exclusion, then this discipline narrows the social intelligence precisely where it is most needed. The architect in contemporary Africa must therefore ask a difficult question: for whom is design being advanced? And under what urban conditions is professional imagination being exercised? The answer to that question determines whether architecture functions as a contributor to spatial dignity or as a spectator to exclusion. Planning is perhaps the profession most explicitly burdened by the contradiction between ideal order and urban reality. Its former purpose is to coordinate growth, regulate land use, allocate infrastructure rationally, and secure the public interest. Its practical life in many African cities, however, unfolds under severe pressure from population growth, weak enforcement, land politics, speculative conversion, informal settlement expansion, and uneven institutional capacity. The result is that planning often appears simultaneously powerful and fragile. It can demolish, designate, approve, and prohibit, but it often struggles to shape urbanization at the speed and scale at which urbanization actually occurs. Abuja provides one of the most revealing laboratories for this contradiction. The city's planning identity continues to be grounded in the Abuja Master Plan, originally associated with the 1979 planning framework, and subsequent enforcement cultures. Yes, scholarly work on informal settlements in Abuja has shown how the 1979 Master Plan, the Land Use Act of 1978, the FCT Act of 1976, and later demolition efforts, including the attempted demolition of Pape in 2012 and the court struggle that lasted until 2017, became critical. More recently, the FCTA has continued to justify demolition exercise in the name of restoring or enforcing the master plan, including actions around airports, adjacent informal settlements, and other spaces deemed inconsistent with the planned city. The issue here is not whether planning control matters. Of course, the issue here is not whether planning control matters. Of course, it matters. The deeper issue is whether planning in such context functions only as a retrospective policing mechanism or as a forward-looking system capable of integrating growth, affordability, informality, environmental risk, and social presently. A planning regime that can remove settlements but cannot generate credible, scalable, and inclusive alternatives may preserve legal order at the cost of urban justice. That is a planning dilemma. But it is also a valuation dilemma. It is also an architectural dilemma and a cost dilemma. Because demolition, displacement, irregular service access, and uncertain tenure all shape the production of value in the city. A particularly important lesson follows from Abuja. Land value is never only a function of location and use, it is also a function of regulatory confidence, tenure security, enforcement credibility, access to power, and the degree to which the future of a place can be imagined with stability. The planner therefore shapes value not incidentally but structurally. Zoning, transport corridors, land release practices, regularization frameworks, enforcement style, and settlement policy all contribute to how value is produced. To how value is produced, distributed, inflated, or destroyed. The planner who believes he is merely allocating land uses underestimates the economic force of the profession. The planner is in truth participating in the state's power to authorize and deny value. I hope I'm not stepping on Emeritus Professor's toes. It is useful at this stage to place Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt side by side, not as random city examples, but as three distinct urban texts through which the professions may read themselves. Lagos represents the frontier of premium aspiration under environmental stress. Abuja represents the planned city under political and regulatory tension. Port Harcourt represents an extractive city marked by social inequality, informality, and episodic state coercion. Each city, therefore, challenges a different professional comfort zone. Lagos is asking the value whether prestige and recent states can continue to dominate interpretation when flood exposure, drainage fragility, and climate volatility are intensifying. It is asking the quantities of your whether site preparation, resilience investment, and service robustness are being costed with sufficient seriousness. It asks the architect whether design language has adapted meaningfully to heat, water, and density. It asks the planner whether the interaction between road corridors, wetland encroachment, transport strain, and land speculation is being governed as an integrated system. Abuja, in the case of Abuja is asking whether planning can continue to invoke a master plan without confronting the political economy that produced informality, the social cost of demolition, and the limits of command-style urbanism in a rapidly expanding capital. It has values whether administratively privileged locations are being interpreted too innocently as transparent market outcomes. It has architects and quantity surveyors whether the former city and the light city are still being treated as separate moral territories. Port Harcourt, in the case of Port Harcourt is asking whether professional discourse can continue to celebrate urban development while thousands are rendered precarious through demolitions and insecure settlement conditions. It asks whether real estate value can be discussed honestly in a city where oil-linked corporate demand, displacement, executive geographics, and waterfront vulnerability coexist so sharply. The point of this comparison is not rhetorical flourish. It is a disciplinary diagnosis. Cities expose the hidden assumptions of professions. A profession that cannot revisit critically will eventually misread its own relevance. What makes this diagnosis especially urgent is the broader national context. The 2022 floods in Nigeria displaced more than 1.4 million people, according to managerial reporting drawing on NEMA data, while UNOCHA reported impacts across 34 of Nigeria's 36 states. When environmental shocks operate at that scale, no built environment discipline has the luxury of analytical narrowness. These are not background events. They alter infrastructure pressure, migration, land suitability, insurance logic, public expenditure priorities, design requirements, and ultimately property value. To continue speaking of value, cost, design, and planning in purely conventional terms, under such conditions, will amount to disciplinary underreaction. What are the implications for teaching, research, and professional formation? At a university such as this, one cannot end as critic. One must ask what forms of teaching, research, and professional formation are now demanded. The first implication is curricular. It is increasingly untenable to train valuers who can manipulate evidence but cannot interrogate data gaps, climate risk, and institutional discussion. It is equally untenable to train quantity surveyors who can price construction items but cannot model whole life costs, resilience investment, and adaptation liability. It is inadequate to train architects who are visually fluent but environmentally superficial. It is dangerous to train planners who know regulation but cannot read the social production of informality, the political economy of land, and the economic meaning of exclusion. A faculty that wishes to lead must therefore produce graduates who are technically anchored and conceptually expansive. They must understand their own disciplines deeply while being literate in the forces that bind those disciplines together. The second implication concerns research. Too much scholarship in the built environment remains either imported in structure or overly descriptive in ambition. Nigeria and Africa do not need a permanent academic dependency in which our cities merely serve as data sites for inherited theories that remain untroubled by local complexity. The profession needs richer African urban theory, stronger empirical data sets, climate-adjusted valuation research, planning scholarship attentive to informality and displacement, design research rooted in thermal intelligence and low resource adaptability, and quantity survey scholarship capable of integrating carbon maintenance, resilience, and long-run asset performance. That research agenda will not be completion. On the contrary, it will make African scholarship more globally significant because some of the most difficult urban questions of the 21st century are already concentrated on this continent. The third implication concerns professional character. Students must be trained not only in competence but in judgment. Competence can execute a method. Judgment can recognize when a method, though correctly applied, is conceptually insufficient. Competence can produce a report. Judgment can ask whether the report has understood the word it claims to measure. Competence can satisfy procedure. Judgment can serve society. And the future of our profession depends on preserving this distinction. A university produces technicians at its peril if it fails to cultivate thinkers. What are the recommendations? The recommendations are flow from this argument and neither cosmetic nor optional. For the faculty, there is a compelling case for deeper interdisciplinary teaching structures. The evaluation students to confront climate exposure, land politics, and urban informality as integral to value formation. The planning students should understand how regulatory decisions shape asset pricing, tenure confidence, and infrastructure finance. The architecture students should be required to engage thermal performance, life cycle consequences, social inclusion, and adaptability as first-order design issues. The quantity survey students should be trained to see cost not as a momentary arithmetic, but as a long-horizon economic, environmental, and social question. This requires studios, seminars, case-based learning, and field research that are built around real Nigerian urban problems, rather than around abstract disciplinary silos. For the professions, stronger standards and guidance are necessary, but standards alone will not suffice. There must be a cultural shift from compliance-minded professionalism to intellectually serious professionalism. The updated RICS Red Book has already recognized the relevance of environmental and sustainability factors as material to value. Nigerian professional bodies and faculty should build on such developments by deepening local government guidance on climate-adjusted valuation, data quality protocols, resilience-aware cost planning, context-sensitive design, and planning systems that grapple honestly with informality and displacement. The issue is not limitation of foreign standards. The issue is the intelligent localization of professional seriousness. For public policy, three areas deserve emphasis. First, land and transaction data systems require much stronger investment. Without credible registries, documented transactions, and better geospatial infrastructures, market interpretation will remain here. Second, urban policy must move beyond demolitions and declarations toward credible, inclusive, and enforceable urban strategies that align housing, service delivery, climate resilience, and land coverage. So, the housing conversation must evolve from unit deficit rhetoric to a fuller conception of habitable, service, affordable, and resilient settlements. Nigeria's national housing policy acknowledges the need for a better articulated housing framework. The challenge is to make such policy operational through institutions that can see housing, not merely as shelter production, but as the core interface between land, infrastructure, affordability, dignity, and long-term urban planning. In conclusion, I now return to the question that has guided this lecture. What are we really measuring? If our answers remain confined to transaction price, estimated cost, visual appeal, or regulatory compliance, then our conception of measurement is too thin for the age in which we live. We are measuring safety whether we are doing it or not. We are measuring thermal comfort, energy burden, flow resilience, access, tenure confidence, public trust, and urban dignity. We are measuring the durability of infrastructure, the credibility of institutions, the adaptability of buildings, and the future viability of settlements. We are also, whether consciously or not, measuring some populations more carefully than others. when formal districts are treated with certification and informal communities are treated merely as planning irritants of the potential targets. The built environment professions therefore face a larger reckoning than is commonly acknowledged. The issue before us is not simply methodological refinement, it is whether our disciplines can mature fast enough to meet the realities they now confront. The city is asking other questions that many of our professional retreats are prepared to answer. The climate is exposing assumptions that our textbooks naturalize. Informality is challenging the limits of regulatory imagination. Data scarcity is testing the confidence of evidence-based practice. Under these conditions, the task of the scholar and the professional is not to repeat inherited formulas with greater polish. It is to think more honestly, judge more deeply, and serve more wisely. That, in my view, is the responsibility of a faculty such as this. That is the responsibility of a profession that wishes to serve public trust. That is the responsibility of those who will inherit these disciplines after us. We must therefore teach better, research better, question better, and above all, measure better. Until we do so, we may continue to produce reports, plans, bills, drawings, and regulations, but we will not yet have answered the larger question, which the future confronts us. What are we really measuring? I would therefore like to express my sincere appreciation to the faculty for the honor of this invitation and for the opportunity to engage with colleagues across planning, architecture, quantity surveying, and estate management. I'm particularly encouraged by the presence of students who represent not only the future of this profession, but also the possibility of thinking differently, questioning more deeply, and responding more effectively to the challenges that lie ahead. To my colleagues and fellow professionals, I extend my respect and gratitude for the work that you continue to do under increasingly complex conditions. The responsibilities placed upon the built environment professions are significant, and the decisions we make carry consequences that extend far beyond our immediate context. It is my hope that this lecture contributes, even in a modest way, to ongoing conversations about how we might strengthen our approaches, deepen our understanding, and align our practices more closely with the realities we face. To the organizers of this lecture, I acknowledge the effort and thought that have gone into making this event possible. I'm informed that several people have contributed financially towards the success of this event. I would like to recognize the following sponsors. ESV Sabi Yadisen, ESV Barrister Wasiu Olayinka, Professor Kola Babalola, Professor Sheikh Oguba, Dr. Samson Adeleke, ESV Remy Oneko, ESV Barrister Ayodada, ESV Samson Albato, members of the Department of Estate Management University. Once again, I want to recognize the presence of one of my mentors, Emeritus Professor Laye Njobi, and also a colleague of mine, Emeritus Professor Kuponi. I'm also acknowledging and I cannot thank him enough, Sabi Adisai. I'm also acknowledging the presence of the NIH or your state branch, my colleagues, especially my HOD Professor Oyedele, and my colleagues up there, the Faculty of Built Environmental Studies, Redeemer University, where we run the division. My colleagues from the Department of Environment, the Faculty of Built Dr. Igo Fayome and the lead CPT, among others. The establishment of guest lectures like this signals a commitment to intellectual leadership. And I have no doubt that this initiative will continue to grow in significance in the years to come. In closing, I thank you all for your attention, your engagement, and your willingness to reflect on the issues raised this afternoon, even though I don't have answers for them. The conversations that follow, both within and beyond this hall, will ultimately determine the value of what has been shared here today. Thank you very much.
Down this lines as we appreciate Eminent Professor Siri Ayodele Ajayi for such an insightful, comprehensive faculty lecture. Please you can do better. Really appreciate you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Please have your seat. Before to the next item, please permit me to recognize the following people in our class. We have Professor O. Ogoba, a visiting scholar to the Department of Estate Management. In that order, we have Professor O.D. Indicom, a visiting scholar, Department of Urban and Development. Thank you, sir. Also, I would like to recognize the presence of Quantity Surveyor F.S. Olaniyan, Fellow, Nigeria Institute of Quantity Surveyor, and Executive Director, Cost Control, HMF Construction Limited. You are welcome, sir. Also, I recognize the presence of our faculty officer, the person of Mr. Kayode Addition. Thank you, sir. Someone is here that is also here to this gathering. Is the immediate past dean of our noble faculty. No other person than Professor O. Ikebe. Round of applause. Thank you, sir. I have recognized the presence of all the faculty members before now, but it's not too late again to do it. So all faculty members that are here, Faculty of Environmental Design and Management, University of Ibadan, please rise for recognition. Let's appreciate them. Let's appreciate them. Let's appreciate them. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Please be seated. On that note, I would like to call on our Emeritus Professor Lai Ibujobi as the main presentation of award to our guest lecturer of today, Professor Siri Ayodele Ajayi. Please. Round of applause. I call on our Emeritus Professor Lai Ibujobi to come to the podium.
Good afternoon, the professors that are here, and the students in the urban environment field. I think we have gone of visiting. Yeah. I have this message to deliver. And the message is a very simple one, but with a very significant implication. I have this message from the Faculty of Environmental Design and Management, University of Ibadan, to appreciate our guest lecturer today, Emeritus Professor C.A. Ajayi. When I had the invitation for this lecture, and I saw Professor C.A. Ajayi's name as the lecturer, I became more inspired to attend. Why? Because he is a man that I'm quite familiar with, but I must confess that it's very long time we have interacted. Very long time. Which shows that our lecturer today is not a young man. I don't know. Neither is he old. Yes, I agree with you. Because Yoruba people will say, with all due respect, it's a fact of life. And that they have observed, they have experimented, and they have used this thing to come up with this saying that we thank you very much that despite your age, despite your position, despite everything that God has enabled you to achieve, you are consented to accept invitation to speak to these students. I listened to you very, very carefully. And let me just say, with all due respect to the students, many of them will go back to read the text and understand more than listening to you. I know that. But more particularly, I appreciated your demonstration of knowledge in all fields about the environment, architecture, estate management, field, planning, and quantity surveying. Thank you very much for this. And to those of us that are aspiring, let me pray that you will also grow. So, on behalf of the students and lecturers and administrators of the the Faculty of Environmental Design and Management, University of Ibadan. I hereby present to you the application of the lecture you have delivered, which are the characteristics of health, education, workplace, intelligence, professionalism, and scholarly quality too. So many dimensions of good activities. Thank you very much.
A round of applause. A round of applause. Thank you. Professor Manu, and then our guest lecturer. On that note, we quickly move to closing remarks, and that is going to be taken by the leading pastor of our faculty, that's Professor O. Ikpegemu. A round of applause and concert.
Thank you very much. We are free this afternoon now, or good afternoon, everybody. They are doing very well. I want to thank our guest lecturer for a job well done. And my responsibility is not to provide a good content, not to provide a closing remark. And I think my strategy will not follow a particular order. I want to thank again all our emeritus professors, everyone on the high table there, my colleagues, and our wonderful students, premier students, all welcome. And also a purpose that this is a faculty that just created 10 years ago. We are just having 10. But we are not also looking at our age in doing anything. Our responsibility is to engage the world and engage society about body issues that affect us. And that's what we are seeing that is taking place. Represent to our faculty there. I want to thank our emeritus professor. He has done the justice to this particular topic on the property value, the data asymmetry, which I always have said, the environment that is changing, in which we are going to be, let us say forever. Yeah, changes are things that are permanent, and uncertainties also are things that are permanent. There is nothing to do about the that will become president of the family. I'm not in the group we have, but I just want to thank Prof. again for the illumination insight into this particular thing. Just to bring it to our memory, we remember or recall that we also had a faculty lecture last year. Just like we are just building on what we have started. And we hope to continue to work in that direction. And we are known as a university of Ibadan, the first advocate. Our core values rest on excellence, innovation, and integrity. And that's why whatever we do it excellently. And you agree with me that our guest lecturer has also provided that one for us. And that's why we don't just invite anybody. We invite people who can add value to the faculty. We want to change the again because you look at the dimension of presentation moving from one department to another, critically looking at the department and the way forward. And that's what we stand as a faculty. I want to thank you, every one of you. In the years to come, after lectures the next week, we're still looking forward to seeing you around because I believe we also have another lecture, another engagement, because we are working with the town to ensure that we have impact in our own environment. So thank you, Mr. Lili, for coming. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Ikpegemu, for such a well-done closing remarks. We are getting to the end of this program. As we prepare to get to the end, kindly permit me to call on Dr. Adebola Adeyemo to lead the photo of thanks.
distinguished guests, it looks like this vote of thanks is going to be for a third time or a fourth time because it looks everybody that has been coming here has been thanking us. So please permit me to adopt this approach that I'll be saying thank you in groups so as to still do what I'm asked to do. Thank you for your understanding. So quickly, first and foremost, I want to thank God, I think He's in place, who has made it possible for us to have this lecture. We are deeply grateful to Him. I also want to thank the presenter, our emeritus professor, who has presented on this thought-provoking title, Rethinking Cost, Design Planning and Property Value in an Era of Data Asymmetry, Climate Risk and Uncertainty. This topic could not have been more timely, sir. I want to say thank you for you doing it in such a way that all the professionals of these four departments are benefited. It really shows that it's an emeritus professor that has come to deliver this lecture. We thank you, sir. I would like to express my sincere gratitude also to the Dean of the Faculty for your leadership, unwavering support in pursuing academic excellence in this faculty. I will not but acknowledge with respect the ancestors that they have been called. I won't mention names as I said. Thank you so much for your mentorship and for sustaining intellectual vitality in the institution, in the profession. Thank you so much. We recognize the contributions of all the professors from the background, professors from the University of Ibadan, from the University of Ife, from Warren, and everywhere, all the professors and our senior colleagues. We really want to thank you for everything that you have been to us. We recognize the contribution of all heads of departments and the teaching and non-teaching staff whose collective efforts have ensured the smooth functioning of the faculty. As I said, I did not mention its faculty officer. I salute you and everyone. Thank you so much. To our postgraduate students who are seated here and the undergraduate students, you remain at the heart of this mission, and we trust that today's lecture has enriched you and your academic journey and professional outlook. Special thanks to the gentlemen of the media and press of the University of Ibadan. Thank you for being with us today. We acknowledge your role in documenting and dissemination the knowledge that has been shared here today. I must not end this thanks without acknowledging Dr. Adeleke, the chairman of the planning committee, for your selfless, okay, I mentioned him, I'm so sorry, for her selfless efforts and in putting together her team for making this possible. I thank you, Ma. Thank you for your selflessness. Finally, I want to thank everyone present here for your patience, if you have not been mentioned in any group. For your patience, for your attention, for active participation. And as we depart, I want to urge you that you do not let the insights from this lecture fade away. Rather, let us carry with us and reflect deeply on the issues raised. Consider how they inform our roles in shaping a resilient, adaptive, and sustainable built environment. Thank you all and safe journey as you go.
Another round of applause for such, a precise photo of talent. Thank you so much. Before we bring the program to an end, I need to let you know that after the national anthem and then the University of Ibadan anthem, there's going to be photograph and network. So we have a gallery, outside the hall. so that you can take the photograph. But before then, I don't want to omit anyone here. So we recognize the presence of all the non-teaching members of staff in all our departments, Department of Architecture, Department of Estate Management, Department of Quantity Surveying, and Department of Urban Regional Plan. On that note, rise as we take the national anthem and the university anthem.
I